Welcome back. This is Random Access episode 4. Let's get right into the gaming news. Starting off, we have to start with Apex Legends, guys. Apex Legends has come out of nowhere to become the life force of Twitch today, as you see it. So far, Apex is just breaking a bunch of records, including beating Fortnite for the single day Twitch viewing, which I believe was over 460,000. They reached 2 million concurrent players faster than Fortnite did, and currently have 25 million total players within the first week. Those are first week numbers, and that number continues to climb. Apex Legends has come out of nowhere. This is the developers for Titanfall series. They've come out of nowhere. They didn't provide any beta. They didn't do any hype prior to the game's release. All they did was a launch tournament to really hype it up. But until the game was launched, nobody really saw this game coming from anywhere. And boy, did it take everybody by storm. Everybody is playing this game right now. This game has had multiple days and like 300, 400,000 plus viewers on Twitch, which is ridiculous. It has been crushing. And as far as other BRs are concerned, it's beating Fortnite handily. It has literally put PUBG to bed. I think PUBG is ready to retire now and go to sleep for good. PUBG, last I checked, was like in the 10,000 viewer range, which is pretty small compared to how PUBG was in 2017, where it was the king of BRs. And it is because there really wasn't anything to compete against besides H1Z1. And ever since Fortnite, PUBG's been limping along, and I think Apex came to put it out of its misery. So it's been a really interesting journey for PUBG, and I think Apex has come along, and it's very similar. I would say it's very similar and very different in regards to the gameplay, but the fluid gameplay, it does seem a little bit more similar, more realistic than your Fortnite game, where it's a little bit more cartoony and there's more building in it. So it does look like the people that were on the PUBG team are slowly going over to the Apex team. Maybe I should rephrase it. Not slowly. They're jumping on that wagon for Apex, because Apex so far has been a great game out the gate. Obviously, it is very early still in this game's life, so we have to see how to do content updates, how to keep the game fresh, because that's what's really kept Fortnite going for so long. Fortnite has seasons that they iterate and change things around to make the game feel fresh and add additional hype to the game. So we have to see how Apex handles that, and also how they handle the pro scene. Are they going to throw money at the pro scene or the competitive scene like Fortnite has with their tournaments, with their fall skirmishes, spring and winter and summer skirmishes, where there's literally millions of dollars on the line for people to earn? If Apex goes down this road, it looks like the future for Apex will be strong. Additionally, jumping into the bad news, Activision Blizzard has cut nearly 800 staff, despite posting. This is according to their financial statements during their press earnings call. Record revenue. They cut nearly 800 staff during this time. The layoffs largely impact the support staff like IT, the quality assurance teams, the testers, if you will, and then the publishing teams. But this has gotten a lot of backlash in social media because of Activision Blizzard stating clearly on their earnings call that they had historic or record revenue numbers. And obviously revenue does not always translate to profit. That is something I understand, but still, to paint a picture that the company is in a great position and then go and turn around and just slap nearly 800 people without a job, that's kind of not good practice, and it doesn't really sit well with the community at large. So many people were very upset with how they painted the company's health and in the future. It looks great, and then they're laying 800 people off. So obviously people are going to be upset about how the optics of it looked. It doesn't look like Activision Blizzard really cares. Obviously they have to do what they have to do to keep their business running at the end of the day. It just sucks that nearly 800 people have to lose their jobs. And it sounds like there will be more jobs around the globe related to Activision Blizzard studios around the globe that there will be additional cuts had. So 800 looks like the initial number, and they may cut even more from there. And additional reading has informed me that a lot of it was due to the Destiny game. So like the publishers that were doing the publishing for Destiny, they were a prime target. And speaking of Destiny, Activision stated that they split with Bungie, the developer of Destiny, because they were not meeting financial goals. They were saying that the financial impact, the positive impact that Destiny was having on their bottom line was very minimal. So they felt it was best that the organizations split from one another, and Activision was fine with relinquishing its publishing rights back to Bungie for Destiny. In other news, a Newzoo report predicts that the esports scene will exceed $1 billion for the very first time in 2019. Now, this is a big deal because it has never exceeded $1 billion before previously. It just goes to show how lucrative the esports scene is, where many people, many gamers like myself, are more on the casual side of the esports scene. But as you can see, there is definitely a business for the esports fan out there, the non-traditional sports fan out there that are looking to jump into esports for games that they love, like Overwatch League, League of Legends, Dota 2, those games, Counter-Strike. I can't live without Counter-Strike, one of the biggest esports events out there to date by concurrent viewership and hours watched. But yeah, those organizations are going to look to capitalize on that. And then additionally, you have your Fortnite scene, your BR scene that is trying to develop a pro scene of sorts to compete with like League of Legends and to compete with Overwatch League and things like that. They're trying to legitimize those leagues around esports as well. So again, a lot of money to be had, over $1 billion estimated revenue. A lot of this from advertising, marketing, sponsorships, and stuff like that. But still, it is a ton of money out there for a lot of people to tap into. And it's great for organizations, great for up and coming esports athletes or professionals that want to jump into the scene. So it's definitely good news for everybody. Another thing I want to point out here too is that the Asia Pacific, like the China region, the Southeast Asia area, will account for nearly 57% or more than half of the esports enthusiasts that will be spending towards that $1 billion figure above. That's pretty significant. I mean, we already knew that China was a huge market, but the whole Southeast Asia market in general is a huge opportunity for anybody jumping into esports. You definitely got to be global minded when you're jumping into the esports scene to tap into that market and get fans at that level, because it is a huge opportunity for anybody trying to jump in that scene. And as you guys already know, China's already big in the esports scene. I mean, they even have mobile games that have pro players on mobile games. It's pretty crazy in China. But even beyond China, the sports scene, the esports scene is huge. I mean, look at Korea. That's another like obvious example that we could go to as far as like being like just diehard esports fans. And slowly the West, specifically the United States, is really starting to pick up on it. And I think per fan, the US has, or the North America region has, the most spend per fan. I think it was like 17.17 cents per person, which is the highest per person amount in the report that it showed out. So our fans may not be as large as maybe other areas, but the North America region as a whole has a lot of impact on the esports scene. And then our per fan amount that we spend is higher than anywhere else in the world. So definitely room for growth as the gaming industry continues to blow up. The next thing I want to go over is the Oxford International Institute study. It states that there is no correlation, or there is no link between time spent playing video games and aggression. So there is a lot of people out there saying that playing video games makes you become a violent person, and that playing video games is a direct relation to, like, say if you will, like acts of violence, like gun shootings at schools, or like being just aggressive in general. And so there was a study, an Oxford study that happened. And they did not find any link between the time spent playing video games versus the increased aggression. And they said there was no way to say that video games were a direct cause of the aggression. And this was a study they did on almost 300 teenagers between like 14 and 15 years old, and I think in like England or the United Kingdom area. So that's good news for us as gamers, because they cannot continue to say that video games are the cause of all this devastation and all this tragedy that has occurred. I mean, even last year, Trump was trying to blame one of the school shootings on video games. So it's good that we're getting these studies done. It's good that they're showing the signs that video games are not the culprit. They may be a supporting cause, but they are not the main factor in driving people to do these tragedies. So more on that, if you guys are interested, check out the Oxford Internet Institute study related to video games and teenage aggression. So definitely check that out. But the good news right now is that there is no correlation, and they can't directly tie video games to that. Great for us going into the future. Another wonky fact that I wanted to let you guys know. Speaking of China, how we were saying that China was such a big esports fan, and the fans are the people that are in China are big fanatics. It is actually officially recognized as a profession in China, and they have two official titles. It's esports operator and esports professional. So it's pretty interesting that China has been, I think, the first nation out there officially to recognize esports as an official occupation. So that is pretty crazy. I don't think it's officially recognized here in the U.S. but as a like a job title or profession. But China has already taken the lead there, and they're letting it known that you can be called an esports operator or esports professional, and that was actually a real profession in China, which is pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy the times we live in so that would happen. And lastly, one of my sleeper favorite games that I liked that I haven't really got back to playing, and I need to get back and finish this game. Kingdom Come Deliverance, the maker of Kingdom Come Deliverance, Warhorse, the developers, they were acquired by THQ Nordic. THQ Nordic acquired all their shares, 100% of their shares, and they now own the developer and also the intellectual property for Kingdom Come Deliverance. So it's interesting what they're going to do with that. They recently have acquired the developer and the IP, and we'll see what happens with that. I'm hoping that they continue developing this world or this game type, because it's a very interesting medieval do what you want kind of world where like things were not as so sandbox easy. So in Kingdom Come Deliverance, you literally you're a guy that could not read, you couldn't fight, you had to learn all this stuff from the basics. Like you had to literally go in there and practice how to get better with the sword. You literally had to run to get better stamina. Everything you did in the game was developed over time. You were this worthless person that had no skill, and you slowly develop those skills as the game progresses. And I thought that was a really good concept, and I would like to see them build on that in the future. So we'll see how that goes. It's very interesting that THQ Nordic took interest in them. I think that game was a big sleeper. It was very, very good. Had some issues out the gate as far as like bugs and performance issues coming out the gate. I think that's why it stumbled a little bit, but those are quickly addressed, and that game has been very smooth since then. So here's the hoping they can make a sequel or make some type of game based off of that technology or based off of that type of gameplay, because it's very interesting. And then next, we have our upcoming game releases. So this Friday specifically, February 15th, if you're watching this at a later date, is a huge day for video games. Okay, so we have Crackdown 3 that came out today. We have Far Cry New Dawn, which is the DLC for Far Cry. I think it's a standalone DLC. I'm not sure if you have that the base game, but the Far Cry New Dawn DLC release, or Far Cry New Dawn was called that. Jump Force came out today, the fighting game with all the anime characters. This came out. Metro Exodus, which is a huge AAA title, came out today on the 15th. Yakuza Kiwami comes out on the 26th, and then Anthem officially releases on the 22nd. But I have that out order there. But it actually released today early. If you buy in early, I think there's like different tiers you could buy into, but you can literally play Anthem today on the 15th. So there are a lot of people playing Anthem today, and not to mention the other games that were just listed here on the screen. But there are a ton of games out today. So if you guys are looking for new games to jump into, definitely check it out. I was looking at Metro Exodus a little bit earlier on Bikeman stream, and man, that game looks beautifully ugly and sad and depressing, and it's such a great game. It looks so pretty. I need to go check out Jump Force. I want to see how that game looks. I'm not a big fighting game fan, but the anime characters really have me intrigued on how they did that. Far Cry New Dawn looked more like Far Cry that we were used to with the Far Cry 4. So I mean, that didn't excite me as much. And Crackdown 3, I've heard that it is a fun game to play, but it looks a little old. It looks like an Xbox 360 game, but again, I haven't seen gameplay myself, so I have to go check that out as well to see how that looks. But so far, it looks pretty interesting. And Anthem seems like a love it or hate it game. It's like there's no in between feelings about Anthem. You either love the game or you hate it. But from what I've seen of the game, it is definitely not something I'm interested in. It looks too bare bones for me right now. It doesn't look that exciting. The game itself doesn't look that beautiful compared to how we saw the trailers and everything in the E3 reviews or the E3 announcements and stuff. Like, it does not look the same. It doesn't look like it's as fluid as it looked in the trailers that they had showed us. So I don't know. It's just interesting to see how Anthem will develop. There are a lot of fans of Anthem though. A lot of people that play freaking love the game. It looks like a game that you can probably play with your friends. But if you're playing solo, I'm not sure how much excitement or enjoyment you'll get out of that game. So just be warned. If you're playing alone, it could be something that you can get bored of pretty quickly. But hey, to each their own. Enjoy the games that you like. Don't worry about what everybody else thinks. And then to round out the list here, we have Dirt Rally 2 coming out, Trials Rising on the 26th, Lego Movie 2, and Stellaris coming out on the console on February 26th. So we have a few games coming out on the 26th. Stellaris is a really good game if you like RTS tactics. Oh, it's not really RTS. I guess it is kind of RTS. RTS in space, kind of. It is like a 4X type of game where you're managing a bunch of planets and you're managing resources and units and things like that, and you're building space stations and diplomacy and all that. So if you like those types of games, then you would probably like Stellaris. Actually, I would say Stellaris is more like a Civ game in space, if that makes any sense. It's like Civilization but in space. That's kind of how that game looks, and it's a really fun game. I recommend definitely checking it out if you have a chance, especially if you've never played it before and you want to play it on console or Xbox. It's definitely a game that you can just pick up and play a couple turns and then sit it down. It's a session game that doesn't really have to take up too much of your time, or it can take up your whole entire day, like it's done for me a few times. Okay, so our next topic is going to be our game spotlight. So if you're new to Random Access, we like to do a game spotlight every episode, and the game spotlight basically is highlighting a game that you may or may not know about that may be a little more obscure than your traditional AAA or super hyped indie game that's coming out. These are the games that kind of fall through the cracks, if you will, and catch us by surprise throughout the year. So what we want to do here with Random Access is highlight those games, discuss why those games are exciting to us, and kind of give you a little taste of what to expect and when to expect it. So with that being said, our game, I'm going to just go ahead and start the video first, is going to be, our game is called Void Bastards. I know it sounds pretty crazy. Our game is Void Bastards, and I'll let the video speak for itself.
Surprise, buttface!
Do try not to die while action items remain unticked.
Gotcha!
Client expired.
I'm looking to you for a paradigm shift towards competence.
Biscuits revoked!
Come here so I can give you a hug.
No respect for synergizing.
Action items ticked.
Game looks beautiful. Game looks amazing, guys. That is called Void Bastards. So that is our game spotlight. Oops. Back up. That is our game spotlight. It is called Void Bastards, and it is. Let me just go over who's making it first, and we can go over what the heck this game is about. But it is amazing looking. This game really caught my attention when I was looking up games that may be a little more obscure to us. But this game is developed by Blue Manchu, published by Humble Bundle, and I had no idea that Humble Bundle actually was a publisher. But they are back in this game. They're the ones publishing it and advertising it, getting out the door. It's going to be available on PC, Xbox One. And it'll be early 2019, so I'm anticipating before June, probably Q2, because I haven't heard anything yet about it being out yet. And usually if it's a Q1 release, they already have a date, so it's probably gonna be Q2. So probably before June, we should expect this game to release. And so, what is this game? This game, again, let's go over who would make it first. It was made by the development director for BioShock and System Shock 2. So his name is Jonathan Che. If you've ever played BioShock or if you've ever played System Shock 2, you know what kind of worlds and systems and kind of gunplay those games have. It's very interesting, very dynamic environments. The environments are pretty cool looking. They're very unique. They stand out. They're impressionable. Like, if you've ever played the game BioShock, you will remember the world that you're in. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it yet. But the game is amazing. The world is amazing. The enemies that you encounter in that game were amazing. The gunplay is tight, crisp, and polished. And so a lot of that we can expect with this game coming out because it is a first-person shooter. Basically, you have to lead a group of prisoners through space. So you are on this ship. And again, I don't know why you're on this ship, but basically you're trying to get across this nebulous or this nexus. You're trying to get from one side to the other to get out of there, to escape. And you have all these prisoners at your disposal. And so you're using these prisoners to go on these derelict, these empty ships or these abandoned ships to get resources to continue your journey, because your ship needs resources to continue on to get out of the zone or out of the area that you're in, to make it to safety, to accomplish your goal. Again, what are the goals? I'm not sure what the goal is. All I know is you need to develop a strategy to get across this map, and you're using these prisoners basically as your gophers to go get these items. And so that's the crazy strategy there. You have a map that you have to look at. There's an overall map on where you want to go in the world, and then you have all these prisoners that you're sending out to do missions for you. And so basically, the prisoners are expendable. It is a single-player game, first-person shooter, and it has comic book visuals. I don't know if you noticed the visuals in this game, but that was what really caught my eye. Even the title, Void Bastards, and this screen here, like it screams like comic books to me, and that's the angle they're going for. Even in the trailer, it had like the comic book cut and everything. It was just the comic book aesthetic makes me want to play this game even more. It's really clean. It looks really beautiful, and I like the art style they're going with it in the comic book theme here. Additionally, like I was saying, you have prisoners that you're going to use to go out on these spacecrafts to retrieve resources and get new weapons and new things to make other things. So you're going to get items so you can craft those things into useful items. But your prisoners actually can choose traits, and they get stronger, or they get different things as you progress, and if they survive, they get different cool things that you can use. Again, I don't know all the details behind it because it hasn't been revealed to us yet, but it looks pretty interesting in regards to like the customization you can do with each prisoner. And now with prisoners, they are expendable. This is a roguelite game where if that prisoner dies, you don't get that prisoner back. If that prisoner dies on a mission, you do not get them back at all. But you know that's the nature of the game. It's a roguelite because you don't lose all your progression. You just lose that prisoner with maybe specific traits that you liked or something. You'll lose that character altogether, and you'll have to get a new prisoner to go on your adventure with. Another thing too is that like I said, you can craft tools. And again, the map you're navigating is called a nebula, and basically you can choose to enter ships, you can choose to avoid ships, you can run into people, you can not run into people. There's little RNG elements in there as well. So that's why it's like kind of like a roguelite in a sense, because you're not sure what you're going to run into, if you're going to run into enemies, if you're going to go on a run and there's nothing there. Like, you could be wasting resources going to something that doesn't have anything for you, or you could waste all your resources in a place because you're just trying to survive through the mission. So there's a number of things in there that you can go through. But again, the goal is to escape with the loot from each ship that you go to. And then if your prisoner does end up dying, you can choose a new prisoner with new traits. But all the tools and upgrades that you had, you'll get to keep those through that prisoner's death. So it is a light. That's why we call it roguelite in a sense, because you're not losing everything. You're not having to start completely over. You're just losing certain aspects or certain characters that may have been really strong for you. And so you're kind of out of luck. I liken it to kind of like what is the game? Oh, why does it escape me? XCOM. So in XCOM you get like your soldiers, right? So XCOM, you can beef up your soldiers, and in one mission you go on, you could actually lose your beefy XCOM soldier, and it can be completely killed, and you can't bring him back to life. Well, it doesn't end the game for you, but you lose that character, and you're gonna have to use a different character to get beefed up and get super like powerful. And so it's kind of similar here, where like if you lose you can lose a strong prisoner per se, but you can get new prisoners that can probably level up faster and get stronger quicker than you previously could in the past because of like gear, weapons, whatever it is, different traits, if you will. But yeah, this game is very interesting. I will be looking for it when it releases. I will be definitely watching it. I hope you guys are excited as I am about it, and I hope that it shows up on your game list as games you're anticipating for this year, because there are so many games coming out this year, but games like this may often be overlooked because of how big the spotlight is on other games. But I think this game has a lot of potential. The art looks amazing. The gameplay, from what I saw in the footage, looked very, very clean and straightforward. It had a fun element to it. I think the character in the beginning called me a butt or something, so there's some humor in there that I really appreciate as well. So yeah, definitely check it out. Void Bastards coming out early 2019. As soon as I know the date, I will let you guys know. But yeah, thank you so much for checking out the Game Spotlight with me today. We're gonna move right along though, and get into the upcoming conventions and events. And oh, that should be February. My bad. So these are the February events here. And so the events that we have coming out, starting today actually, is DreamHack. DreamHack is happening in Germany today. It is a 2-day event that started today. There's DevGam in Moscow, Russia going on. And then there's a Game Development and Design Conference, not to be confused with GDC. This is a separate conference. This is actually being held in Pune, India. The GDC conference is held in San Francisco, in case you're wondering, and that's in March, I believe. So yeah, this is a different conference, and it is held in India. And lastly, there's C3 AFA. That's happening in Hong Kong, Japan. And honestly, I don't really know. I think this is like an anime appreciation event that they're having in Japan. But yeah, I don't really know too much about it because the website was mostly in Japanese, so unfortunately I couldn't get additional information for you. But yeah, this is the information. These are the upcoming events for February, not January. And I will update this list again in March to show you guys the new events coming up. Additionally, there was announcement for TwitchCon EU. The tickets finally went on sale. That's happening in mid-April in Berlin, Germany. So if you're interested in going to TwitchCon and you live in the EU, it is happening mid-April. So you gotta get there. You better get those tickets now, because by the time you watch this video, they may already be sold out. And then lastly, we have our February free games. So every month you have free games that are available to you via Twitch Prime, the PlayStation Network, or Xbox Gold, or Xbox Live, if you will. And so these are the games available to you. I'll go ahead and list them off here. So for Twitch Prime, there's Pikuniku, Dear Esther, Downwell, The Flood in the Flame in the Flood, which actually is a game I'm interested in playing. Flame in the Flood. That's games I've been looking at for a while. I believe that's a roguelike game as well. For PlayStation, there's For Honor, Hitman, the first season, Dive Kick, Metal Gear Solid 4, Gunhouse, and Rogue Aces. And for Xbox Live, you have Bloodstained, Super Bomberman, Assassin's Creed Rogue, and Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, which I never played that game. That game seems, I wonder if that game's older. That has to be an older game. Pretty old. But I never played that game for some reason. I don't know why. I was always playing all the Star Wars games. But anyways, I digress. Thank you guys so much for checking out Random Access today. We will be back next week. I promise I will be more consistent with this news segment going forward. I had to kind of recalibrate a little bit with the news segment, and I do apologize for being away for so long. We will continue to pick things up next week. You can catch us here every Friday, 9 p.m. Pacific time, twitch.tv/DaddySteve. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much.